What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Sharkbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers. It's Wednesday. They are preparing for the Indianapolis Colts. Fun fact about the Indianapolis Colts, they have the lowest time of possession. I'll start you off with a riddle here, Nick, before I ask you how you're doing today. First off, find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. All right, I got one for you. What do you think the Steelers' time of possession was in 2023, bearing Kenny Pickett, Matt Canada, and, well, everything that was the Pittsburgh Steelers offense in 2023?
If I had to guess on average, I'd say 24 minutes.
29 minutes, which is shocking, right? A little bit better than you anticipate. Okay. Now, I will reference this by starting with the Colts have the worst time of possession in the NFL. What do you believe the Colts' time of possession is this season?
20.
21 minutes. That was a good guess. Did you see that before? Did you hear that somewhere before I tossed that at you?
No, I didn't. I just like playing blackjack, so I figured I'd do a little bit of Price is Right with it, not go 21 and go 20 instead. So lucky guess.
It was a good guess. 21 minutes. The Pittsburgh Steelers had the worst offense I've ever seen in my existence last season, and somehow the Indianapolis Colts are worse, which, for those of you looking at this game on Sunday and saying, is it going to be a test? Are they worried? I wouldn't be. At least not where we stand right now. But we'll get into predictions on Friday. It's a little bit too early for that one. Today's show, we got two more wide receivers to talk about that ESPN has named potential candidates for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Meanwhile, another change to the offensive line. I think we might see one on Sunday. And a long injury report to start off week 4. We'll dive into what it means and who you should be worried about, who you should not be worried about this early in the week. But I will ask you, as I do every single day, how you feeling, my friend?
Feeling all right. We haven't seen the sun in a couple days down here in the DMV. Agreed. I mean, I'm sure the Commanders fans don't care because they got themselves a certified guy. We talked about him yesterday.
True.
But, Steelers are 3-0, so you can't complain. And honestly, when you're doing this for a living, you certainly can't complain.
Yeah, that's what they say. Living the dream. We haven't had much sun either, and today was a very rude awakening of, hey, Noah, remember that you forgot to get your basement waterproofed? Here we are. Yeah, it was a fun time. But that's all right. That's in the past. We're here now, and we're ready to talk some Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's start with ESPN and two more wide receiver targets the Pittsburgh Steelers could have their eyes on by the trade deadline. ESPN's Dan Graziano believes that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be locked in to the trade market as the trade deadline approaches, that what they got or didn't get out of Brandon Ayuk, but what they wanted to get out of Brandon Ayuk was not enough. They're ready to keep it going. They're ready for another big name, and they have not seen enough out of Calvin Austin, Scotty Miller, and certainly Van Jefferson. They tossed two names at us. One of them is DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think he needs any introduction. And the other one is Christian Kirk of the Jacksonville Jaguars, a name that I think if you went into this season was not available to the Steelers, was not a name anybody would even consider. But where we sit here right now, there are few teams as disastrous as Jacksonville, who were supposed to be good, but few teams as disastrous as Jacksonville. And the Titans might be the only one, but I think we also saw that coming. Didn't see Jacksonville coming. Graziano believes that both of those teams will be looking to sell, and both of those teams would be looking to sell some wide receivers. Now, you can't reference anything or preference anything without talking contracts. That is the most important part of this entire puzzle. So before we start, what is Christian Kirk and what is DeAndre Hopkins' contracts looking like this season?
Yeah, let's start down in Jacksonville with Christian Kirk. This season, he has a $24.2 million salary cap hit, which is tough to swallow, but not as tough to swallow as next year, where he has a 27.2 salary cap hit going into the last season of his contract there.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's DeAndre Hopkins?
That correct? Is Christian Kirk.
Oh, that is Christian Kirk. I apologize. I was looking up stats as we were as we were talking here. All right, so a 27, he was the original. You got to remember, he was the original. Christian Kirk was the dude who started. Like, he does not get enough credit for starting the wide receiver market that is today. That was Christian Kirk. He did that in Jacksonville, signed a deal that nobody in their right mind would have signed Christian Kirk to, but he got into it. $27 million is way too much for a guy named Christian Kirk that you're looking out. I mean, just go through his seasons here. Just go through what he's done for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Missed almost all of last season. Only played 12 games the year before. The year before that, his first year in Jacksonville, the $20 million deal or whatever, 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. That's the only one he's ever gotten. Only time he's ever broken 1,000 yards. Now, if we were talking, $20 million for a wide receiver 2, I'm all about it. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are in a good spot for it. And I think that they'd go out and they make a deal because Christian Kirk isn't going to be worth a bunch of money or a bunch of compensation. And you could probably get him for a 3rd-round draft pick and feel pretty good. Maybe a 4th-round draft pick, feel pretty good. He's 27 years old. He adds a ton of speed to an offense that loves their speed this season. But for $27 million in a year, is there dead money included in that? Can you get rid of him in a year?
No, the potential out was before this season.
That's good. I'm glad Jacksonville waited until it was too late to stick with their guy. I don't think Christian Kirk is a name in my mind that makes much sense. I think that he would if he wasn't so expensive. He would be a perfect wide receiver 2 for Pittsburgh. Ability to play outside and the ability to play inside. A bigger Calvin Austin, which has worked out well coming off of week 3 against the Chargers. A name that, that's what the Steelers, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the Roman Wilsons. They're looking for the Calvin Austins. They're looking for those smaller, fast guys to complement the big guy in George Pickens. And Christian Kirk would have fit the bill well. $27.5 million. No, thank you. What's DeAndre Hopkins looking like?
Yeah, you said you wanted $20 million for a wide receiver 2. DeAndre Hopkins is in the final year of his current contract at $18.3 million on the salary cap hit. So he comes in under what you were hoping for a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, D-Hop would be a name to consider. Now, there are pros and cons here. Okay. Obviously, anytime you're going out, I believe he's 33 years old. Anytime you're going out to get a 33-year-old wide receiver, you're getting a 33-year-old wide receiver, that's past the playing age. If we're going to be honest. Not many guys on the upper end of 30 do what DeAndre Hopkins has done throughout his career. For 1 year to come in here and just be a guy and be the number 2 and be a reliable set of hands. I mean, it's not like DeAndre Hopkins is bad. By no means is not bad. And people could say he's at the end of his career. He probably is at the end of his career, but I'm almost positive he had 10 touchdowns last season, somewhere like that. It was a wild amount of touchdowns for the Titans, even with Will Levis, who looks like a complete dumpster fire right now. I wouldn't be too opposed to a DeAndre Hopkins as we sit here. I'll get to the cons. First, I want to know if you pulled up, do we have 10 touchdowns?
7 touchdowns, but over 1,000 receiving yards last year.
See, that's not bad. That's a good stat line. And that's what the Steelers are looking for in a wide receiver too. Just give me 1,000 yards and a couple touchdowns. That's all you need. Compliment George Pickens. Be the guy that could come in here and be a number 2. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins could be the number 2, and he's a veteran, so he'll help with George Pickens. He'll help with Roman Wilson. He'll help with Calvin Austin. My only issue is he's got a personality. I don't know what that personality exactly is, which is a massive question. Is it a great personality? Is it I kind of forced myself out of both Arizona and Houston personality? I don't know what side of the coin you're going to get. If you're going to get the negative coin, you're going to take a risk, and it's going to be a massive risk because George Pickens is already a risk. Personality wise is, he's teetering the edge at all times. He's a dude where you're constantly kind of nervous of what's going to come out of his mouth or go on his social media or so on and so forth. You don't want another one there. But if he's a proven vet who's there, who's coming in here to be a professional, another Patrick Peterson like they had a corner last year to be a wide receiver too. Look, at the bar can't be high because right now the bar is on the floor. The Steelers don't have the bar hasn't even been rose or risen or picked up at all. There is no bar to even talk about because right now the Steelers bar is Calvin Austin. And that's great. I hope it works out for him. I hope it continues to work out for him. But that's not the bar the Steelers were looking for. Van Jefferson isn't it. Would you go with DeAndre Hopkins? Do you think he's washed?
I don't think he's washed. I mean, the guy had 1,000 yards, as you mentioned, with that offense last year in Tennessee, which was not good. And this year, I mean, he's coming off of a game where he had 6 catches on 7 targets, 70-some yards. This is a guy that's always going to be, to some extent, a good receiver in the NHL or NFL. Sorry, I'm going back and forth between leagues today. But at the same time, again, the biggest thing you mentioned is where's the floor right now and where's the ceiling? DeAndre Hopkins, by just happenstance of being himself, raises the ceiling for the Steelers wide receiver room because he brings in somebody else who can get open. And there are times, we've seen it in week 1, we saw it in week 2, Van Jefferson struggles to get open. Sometimes Calvin Austin struggles to get open. DeAndre Hopkins is good at getting himself open, and that's what the Steelers need. And for 1 year, you have the salary cap space right now, right? I mean, it's easy to make work. What is the harm in bringing it in? Because he can't use it by not using it. Like, it doesn't help you by not using it. So if you're going to bring in Hopkins at $18 million for 1 year, why not?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, my thing is where we stand currently. I'm only a 1-year guy for the Steelers in a wide receiver trade. So just go get a rental. Go get a rental that you could have this season that you could go and try to win a Super Bowl with. And then you move on next season and you figure it out again. Don't lock yourself down. Don't put yourself in a situation where you don't know where your salary cap situation is going to be in a year, especially with the wide receiver. The Steelers saved themselves. If we're going to be 100% honest, the Steelers saved themselves by not getting Brandon Ayuk because they would have paid him $28, $29 million a season. And next year, when they're trying to pay Justin Fields or whoever it is that kind of money, they're not going to have it because they got to go sign TJ Watt and they got to go figure out Minkah Fitzpatrick in a year and George Pickens in a year and what's going on with their offensive line. There's questions, and I think they avoided a massive moment with Brandon Ayuk. And I don't think you do that with a 1-year contract. I agree. DeAndre Hopkins is still a dude in my eyes. He's going to remain a dude. And I think come week 8, like, he doesn't want to finish his career on a bad team. Nobody wants to finish their career on a bad team. You want to leave, get out of there, go to Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin would love to have a DeAndre Hopkins. Would love to have a DeAndre Hopkins on his roster. He's my pick out of these two. Christian Kirk, I mean, unless you feel differently, that doesn't make it makes almost 0 sense for me to go get Christian Kirk if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'm not as low on the player Christian Kirk as you, but for the salary cap hit, I'm not taking that swing on Christian Kirk. I mean, they overpaid for him because they simply wanted to have somebody for Trevor Lawrence. Now, they did have somebody, 1,000 yards the first season, 700 last year, despite only missing 5 games. So they've gotten somebody out of Christian Kirk, but I'm not paying that type of money if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers to bring in a guy for the next 2 years.
No, that's and don't get me wrong. Like, I think Christian Kirk is a good number 2, but he's not worth $27 million and no out. That's just not where I stand currently. And unfortunately, the Jaguars did have a guy. His name was Calvin Ridley. They let him go to Tennessee, which makes it easier to get rid of DeAndre Hopkins. And maybe that's where the Pittsburgh Steelers stand. I don't know. I think it's a conversation to continue, but those are 2 interesting names. DeAndre Hopkins is going to get brought up a lot. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a name that we mentioned quite a few times because others are mentioning him throughout the media realm, talking about him going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That'll heat up. That's going to be a name that, the Denver Broncos might not lose enough by week 8. The Jaguars will probably lose enough. The Tennessee Titans are guaranteed to lose enough that by week 8, not only will Mason Rudolph most likely be the starting quarterback over there, but they'll be jumping ship and everybody and their mother will be on the trade pin because they'll be trying to look to see what they can do next year to avoid the situation they are currently in. All right. When we come back, we're going to talk offensive line changes for the Pittsburgh Steelers and not the ones that you might think they are. And then a very long injury report for Pittsburgh to start the week. We'll dive into what it means and what we should be worried about compared to what we probably should not be worried about. All that and more. But first, we got a word from our boys over at DraftKings. It's football season, and we've teamed up with DraftKings. Right now, you can get involved in even more action with DraftKings Pick6, a brand new way to play daily fantasy sports. And the best part, all new customers who play $5 will get $50 in Pick6 credits. All you have to do is download the DraftKings Pick6 app now. Sign up with our code ALLSTEELERS and get kicking. Only on DraftKings Pick6, the crown is yours. Getting started is simple. Just download the DraftKings Pick6 app and sign up with our code ALLSTEELERS. From there, just pick at least 2 players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. Lock them in and compete against others for a shot at a huge cash prize. Download the DraftKings Pick6 app now and sign up with our code ALLSTEELERS only on DraftKings Pick6. The crown is yours. Shout out our boys over at DraftKings. Excited to make some bets tomorrow. Excited. What's the game tomorrow? What is the game tomorrow?
It is Dallas Cowboys against the New York Giants.
Wow, that sucks.
Yeah.
That's a terrible Thursday night game, man. Wow, that's garbage, actually. At least we'll get to see if the Cowboys can bounce back and do something. The Giants don't scare me. But Malik Neighbors is fun to watch. So shout out to Malik Neighbors. Shout out to the Cowboys, I guess. Where is it? Is it in Dallas or is it
I believe it's in the Meadowlands.
That's even worse. It's going to be rainy. All right, cool. Yeah. Well, hopefully it's over by halftime and we all get some sleep for Friday. All right, let's dive into some offensive line changes that could be coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Ray Fittipaldo believes that, well, don't rule out another change on the interior line for the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 4 against the Indianapolis Colts. It's not Zach Frazier getting benched. It's not James Daniels getting benched. It's a change to Mason McCormick, a guy that I think if you ask 90% of our viewers, 50% of our viewers, they tell you Mason McCormick should be starting at guard. Why is he not starting at guard over Spencer Anderson? Just because of the upside, the future. He is the plan. Give the plan some time to get their legs moving. Ray Fittipaldo believes Mason McCormick could be starting at guard this week against the Colts. I'll say this. I wouldn't rule it out. I think it's very, very much so a possibility. I really, truly do. We'll know more next week or tomorrow when, they start to really dive into team stuff. But truthfully, Isaac Seumalo, who returned to practice today in a limited capacity, but returned to practice today, is the biggest what if of the whole situation. Because Isaac, to me, did not look like a guy who isn't going to play on Sunday. Isaac, to me, looked like a guy who was back in the fold and quickly reminded all of us that he's Isaac Seumalo. He's a veteran. He's a Super Bowl champion. This guy knows what he's doing, and he's done it for a long time. Maybe he doesn't need 2 weeks to ramp up. Now, if he doesn't, I could see Mason McCormick starting only because Spencer Anderson is going to need to be the swing guard or the swing tackle. And the Steelers are going to need a swing tackle, and they don't really want Mason McCormick to be that swing tackle. I will say it should come with the sign of caution because I don't think Mason McCormick is ready. And maybe this ends up on Cold Take somewhere in a week if somebody cares about a North Dakota State rookie. But I don't believe Mason McCormick should be starting. I think Indianapolis's defense is bad, so that helps. But you're kind of tossing a guy who shouldn't be starting into the starting lineup to get rid of a guy who has played well in the starting lineup to make him your backup at a position that he doesn't play. Classic Mike Tomlin, Pittsburgh Steelers situation? Yes. Do you think Mason McCormick, do you think it makes sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers to say, we'll start Mason McCormick, Spencer Anderson will become the swing guard, swing tackle? I keep saying swing guard.
The one thing that's sticking out in my mind, and again, this might just be something that's sticking out in my mind personally and not anybody else's, but when talking about the left guard situation, Mike Tomlin did use the word rotation again yesterday. I don't know why they would go back to that well, but I wouldn't rule out the fact that they kind of do what they did last week whenever they took out Spencer Anderson, put in Mason McCormick, and then took McCormick back out and put in Anderson, but they're just switching it around this time. And I think that Fittipaldo and you have it correct that right now, I know they just went out and they signed an offensive tackle to their practice squad, but Spencer Anderson is probably their most likely bet to be the swing tackle in case of emergency going into this week 4. So it makes sense that you would start Mason McCormick and let him get his feet underneath him. Now, do I like that idea? No, I hate rotation, especially in game is horrible. But we've said since day 1 of training camp, we want to see these guys line up, field a chemistry, get a field together so they can build on it through the season. We're 4 weeks into this and we continue to change things around. I understand that there have been injuries, but at this point, if CA-ONT can't go, why not field the same first line that you've had over the last couple of weeks, especially that you had last week, and just have Mason McCormick in case Anderson falters, which, as you mentioned, he hasn't. So I don't understand the flip-flopping. I understand that you want Spencer Anderson to potentially be that swing tackle, but that's a position that last year he sat in as that rookie. So I'm not exactly sure why they're overly, I don't want to say gun shy. It's the opposite of gun shy. They're overly trigger happy on making these movements. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Look, at the craziest part of all that is you just explained that, and it makes all the sense in the world. The Steelers used Mason McCormick as their swing tackle.
Their jumbo tackle, yeah.
Yeah. They rotated him at guard so that Spencer could be the jumbo tackle, and they used Mason McCormick as the jumbo tackle. So what even is that? I don't even think anybody knows what the game plan is. I think where we sit here right now, the Steelers are just winging it. They're just saying, screw it, man. We're just going to keep figuring it out until we have something that we could come up with that works consistently. The craziest part is it probably works consistently if you stop messing with it and you just let it gel a little bit. I think the Steelers are going to push Isaac Seumalo to get back out here as fast as possible just because they don't even know what they want to do on offensive line, and it is an issue. But that being said, I do imagine that Ray's probably right, and I wouldn't rule out Mason McCormick starting at, what would that be, left guard this week? And I would not rule out Spencer Anderson being the swing tackle, which doesn't make any sense to me. Make Spencer your starter. Call up John LeGlue. Call up Galvin Anderson, I believe his name is, former New England Patriot. Take a guess at this is stunning, actually. Okay, take a guess at what that guy missed most of last season for.
Oh, I wouldn't even have the slightest clue.
Oh, I'm gonna say this wrong. Not Malaysia. It's a disease.
Interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you. I won't say it right. I won't do it any justice. But I was like, wow, that's not a thing that's around anymore. But
malaria.
That's what it was. Malaria. Had malaria. Couldn't believe that one. I was like, wow, that's stunning, if we're going to be honest. But he's back. And first off, great dude. Met him today. Nice guy. But I would imagine you call him up. If it was me, I'd call him up. I'd make him the swing tackle. It's not hard to learn swing tackle. And start Spencer Anderson. Stop messing with this. But I believe Ray Fittipaldo is correct. All right. Let's talk Steelers. Ridiculous injury report to start the week as I scroll down all of the 7 billion Twitter notifications that I have trying to get to this little injury report here. Little, I mean super long. We'll start with the Colts. Kenny Moore has got a hip. I don't even know any of these guys. Quiddy Payne's got a quadricep.
Yep.
And Braden Smith's got a knee. Those are the ones the Steelers should worry about. On the Steelers side of things, Russell Wilson, calf, limited. Roman Wilson, ankle, full. Van Jefferson, eye, full. Those are the good ones. Now we get into the bad ones. Najee Harris, a non-injury related rest day, did not practice. What are the odds the Steelers get hit with some sort of fine in the next, 72 hours to a week? Because they, for some reason, just don't want to put arm on there and instead say non-injury related rest day, but he's in a sling. You might get called out for that one. They might get called out for that one. Deshaun Elliott's got a quad. He's limited. Dante Jackson, non-injury related rest day. He was also limited, which is a weird thing to put, but okay. Jaylen Warren, knee, did not practice. Alex Highsmith, groin, did not practice. Isaac Seumalo returns from a pec with some limited work. Michael Pruitt, knee, did not practice. TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, and Larry Ogunjobi all limited on the day. Long long report. We'll kind of identify what ones to worry about, what ones to not. Najee, don't worry about him. Deshaun Elliott, you should be worried about. I mean, a quad. I will say this. He was walking through the locker room. Somebody said, "Yo, you good?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm good," and just kept walking. So take that as you will. I didn't ask him. He went to the trainers. I wasn't going to get in his way from getting healthy. So I would imagine he's okay, but definitely something to monitor. Jaylen Warren, I have almost no faith is going to play this week. None whatsoever. Alex Highsmith's already been ruled out. Michael Pruitt's already been ruled out. Isaac Seumalo with the pec hopefully is a good one. And I'm sorry, but I'm monitoring Najee. Like I'm looking at Najee and saying, I don't know if that's non-injury related rest day. I think it's an arm. I think he'll be okay, but still something to look for. Deshaun Elliott hit with a quad. You worried about any of these or no?
The one that was, I gave a double take with Deshaun Elliott because I was like, well, that one, I mean, was not mentioned by Mike Tomlin yesterday, was not mentioned by Mike Tomlin on Sunday post game. So that one came as a little bit of a surprise to me. And also because of how good Deshaun Elliott has been for the Steelers through the first 3 weeks. That's just a name you did not want to see popping up, especially with something like a quad injury. But again, limited participant. We'll have to wait and see how the week goes. It could just be some bumps and bruises. We are 3 weeks into this thing where some players start to get, some nicks and scratches. So we'll see if he's able to be a full participant tomorrow. That's one that I'm a little concerned about, but fortunately you do have DeMonte KZ, who is coming off of a pretty interesting game the last time the Steelers went up against the Indianapolis Colts in Indy. But other than that, the Najee one was interesting. The fact that yesterday they said, there's nothing wrong with Najee. He's good to go. And then he pops up as a rest day, no participant. So that one, again, maybe it's Veterans Day off and he's just walking around there, but maybe they are going to be getting a fine here in the next couple of days.
That's what I'm saying. I think Mike Tomlin might have bit the bullet on that one. Our Rooney's not going to be too happy about it. Jaylen, I don't expect to play. Deshaun Elliott, the good part there is that you do have guys like Terrell Edmonds. You do have guys like DeMonte KZ who could step up to a role if need be. The other issue there is that a lot of times when it's an injury that wasn't mentioned on Tuesday that pops up on Wednesday and limited, could mean that it happened during practice, which is not what you're looking for if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, but especially with soft tissue injuries, but something to monitor as we move forward. All right. We're going to dive into all of your questions. We got some good ones, so we'll take them away. But first, we got a word from our boys over at Mando.
My guys, you ever lift just a little too hard and forget to apply that daily deodorant only to get hit by a truckload of BO later in the day? Well, does that 3-in-1 shampoo ever leave you needing a second shower? Here we go. From the founders of Lumi, Mando Whole Body Deodorant is helping men conquer their odor in a new way. Formulated with mandelic acid, Mando has long-lasting 72-hour odor control that actually stops odor before it starts. And the best part is you can put Mando everywhere. Pits, packages, feet, skin folds, backs of knees, everywhere. To top it off, Mando's cologne quality scents are created with men in mind. And well, I'll give you a pro tip. Try their best-selling scent, Bourbon Leather. It's an absolute game changer. I will tell you that I got the package. My wife immediately goes, I could smell that box from over here. And I won't lie to you. I opened it up. I haven't turned back since. I only use Mando from here on out. Let me tell you about the Mando starter pack. It's the perfect thing for new customers. It comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked up on your favorite smelling body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Just use the code ALLSTEELERS at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. It's time to smell better naked. Your partner will thank you.
Shout out to Mando. Shout out our boys over at Mando. All right, let's dive into some questions. It's a Wednesday before, a decently big game, but again, 20. Do you think they could 2 hours and 36 minutes, I believe, is the pace of play, the total time lapsed during the Pittsburgh Steelers Week 3 game against the Chargers? That's the thing I never thought was possible. I got I got out of there well before I've ever gotten. It looks bad. If we're gonna be, it looks bad on me. Like I had the in-laws last night actually ask me, "Hey, what time do you typically get home on Sundays?" And then they quickly changed the question to, "What time did you get home this past Sunday?" And I said, "Oh, I was home before 6 o'clock." And makes me look lazy. It makes me look like, oh, you're not even working. What are you doing home by 6 o'clock? That's nothing. It was the quickest game of all time in the history of games. It was the quickest game I've ever experienced. Do you think there's a possibility it goes even shorter in Indy?
No, I think what you saw last week was a ridiculously, combination of everything that had to go right for that game to be extremely, extremely short. I mean, the second half, especially, it was over. After like 2 drives, it felt like the entire time we were looking, I was like, oh, there's 5 minutes left in this game. This hasn't gone back and forth very much, and we haven't had many opportunities. It's because the game was going by because everybody was running the ball, and also they were connecting on their passes. Justin Fields, in particular, was connecting on his passes. There wasn't a lot of incomplete pass, stoppage here, stoppage there. It was effective playing, and when it wasn't effective, aka the Chargers side of things, it was a lot of sacks and running the football. So, yeah, it was a very quick second half, especially because the Steelers, I believe, had 5 sacks in the second half alone, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it was a nuts one. I hope so. Look, you always just got. I hope so. Nice, quick, smooth game. Typically ends on the Steelers side of things, so you gotta hope so. All right, let's dive into some questions. What do we got?
We got a couple of people, and let's go to Logan because he was the first one that I saw throw it in the chat. CJ Henderson, is he the Week 8 starter? Of course, the cornerback signed to the Steelers practice squad earlier today. Any thoughts on the newest addition for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Week 8 start. I mean, Dante Jackson ain't getting benched anytime soon. I will say that CJ Henderson is a name to monitor. I hope that he gets called up in the next couple of weeks. I would like to see what he can do. I didn't really get to catch him do much today at practice. I hope that he can evolve into something because he is. I mean, he was the 8th, the 9th overall pick, somewhere around there a couple of years ago. That being said, he's never turned in anything. And you got to wonder why that is. You got to wonder if he's capable of turning into something, because corners who don't typically make it early tend to never make it. So you got to hope that he can turn into something. I don't know if he's going to. Starter, no chance.
Let's go over to Nate Moore, who wants to know, if Pickens is so elite, why doesn't he get CeeDee Lamb type target numbers?
Steelers offense isn't designed for that. You know, they're a running offense. Dallas is we only have one guy. His name's CeeDee Lamb offense. And Dak's making way too much money not to throw the football to him all the time. So it's just a different offense, different play style, different progressions, different quarterback situation, different wide receiver situation. The whole thing, the whole landscape of the whole situation is different. Pickens isn't supposed to get the targets that CeeDee Lamb gets. And to be quite honest, I don't think CeeDee Lamb is supposed to get the targets that CeeDee Lamb gets. Dallas just doesn't have anything around him.
Let's go over to Brimstone, who says, will it kill Justin's momentum if he gets benched for Russ whenever Russ becomes healthy? Love the show. Keep them coming.
Appreciate you. It would kill Justin's momentum, but I don't think that they're going to make that call. I just have a hard time believing that the Steelers are going to look at this situation and say, Russ is healthy, Justin, you're going on the bench. We're 6-0. Things are fine. They'll remain fine. You don't fix something that's not broken. The Steelers are far from broken right now. You don't fix it. The way I look at this is Russ will not be healthy until Justin needs to be benched. And if Justin never needs to be benched, Russ will never be healthy. That's where I stand.
Let's go over to Nate Moore, who wants to know, when do you predict our first high-scoring game this season?
I mean, scoring's down in the NFL, so 20 points is not terrible. But I know we're talking, 28, 35 points, somewhere in that realm. Najee Harris gets in, that's 27-point game right there. That's pretty big. So the Steelers are on the verge. They're capable of getting it done. I could definitely see Indianapolis being a big one for this offense. I could definitely see it. But at the same time, if the Steelers go up, 14, 20 points early, they're not going to keep scoring. They're just going to win a football game. And that kind of hurts the whole, when is the first high scoring game going to happen, just because Mike Tomlin takes his foot off the gas, and that definitely impacts how much points you're going to score.
Let's go over to Jacob Kennedy, who says, if the Steelers were to look for a wide receiver, what do you think about Darius Slayton as an option? Also, has there been any update on Cole Holcomb?
No update on Cole Holcomb. Still remains, a work in progress, working on the field. Actually, I'm pretty sure I just watched a Theo Vaughn interview with Caleb Presley from Barstool the other day where they went hunting with Cole Holcomb, which random trio, but I hope it was fun. When it comes to the wide receiver and Darius Slayton, I think that's a name to watch. I mean, the Giants are going to give up everybody by the bye week. They're done. They're going to try to get rid of literally everybody they possibly can. Slayton could be an option. Kind of depends on what they're looking for. I also believe he might be hurt, which could play a role into this. But if he is healthy, he's a name. Just kind of depends on what the compensation is going to be for him and if the Steelers have better options, because I think there are better options than Darius Slayton out there.
Let's go over to Now Look It, who says, might we see Alex Highsmith dangled as a trade bait whenever he gets healthy if Herbig continues to crush it?
Nope. Quick and easy answer. No, they wouldn't trade him. They love 3 outside linebackers. They'd rather have way more on defense than they need. They wouldn't even consider it. It's not even a thought, and it won't be a thought. The Steelers want their defense to be as loaded as humanly possible, and they also want depth, because even if Nick Herbig is a stud, what if Nick Herbig gets hurt? You want to have another guy. That's Alex Highsmith. What if TJ Watt gets hurt? That's Alex Highsmith. That's Nick Herbig. You want those guys. They wouldn't even consider it.
You mentioned if Nick Herbig gets hurt. X Concepts wants to know who is the backup outside linebacker without Highsmith in the lineup. Leal comes to mind, but Moon is on IR. Do they end up signing somebody else?
Right now, DeMarvin Leal is going to be the backup outside linebacker. He's worked at outside linebacker throughout training camp. Mike Tomlin acknowledged it on Tuesday that he's going to be the back and forth guy, especially with Dean Lowry finally getting a helmet. You don't really need Leal on the inside as much. He could be on the outside. I still think he works most of his reps at defensive end, defensive tackle, but he is going to be the technical third outside linebacker.
Let's go over to Timothy, who says, first time making it to the live. Always listen when I'm at work. Love what you guys do. Appreciate you. Says, my question is, what do you think about trading for Jalen Waddle by the trade deadline? The one thing I'll say before you go, Noah, is Jalen Waddle did sign a contract extension with Miami. He signed through 2028.
Yeah, he's not on the trade market. He's a name that everybody tosses out there. And I have people all the time, just like random people I'm talking to, whether I'm at a bar or at a family function or anything. Everybody, what about Jalen Waddle? What about Jalen Waddle? And I get it. I get the hype around the kid. I think he'd be perfect in Pittsburgh's offense. But he just signed a massive deal this summer. He's not going anywhere. Miami's not trying to trade him. They've signed all their pieces. That's, Miami has their key guys in place. They need an offensive line, and they probably need some defense, but they're not focused on that. They're focused on the wide receivers and Tua, and they inked all of them to big deals. So Waddle is not going to be available for the Steelers.
Let's go over to Tyler B., who wants to know, do you think we see Roman Wilson's debut this weekend?
I do, actually. I do think that the Steelers debut Roman Wilson. I don't believe that Jaylen Warren's going to play. I could see Jonathan Ward getting called up, and then I could also see Roman Wilson getting a hat as well, just as some added little oomph there. I don't know if he's going to play much on offense, but I do expect Roman Wilson to get a hat this weekend.
Let's go over to Marlon Lewis, who says, should we worry about corner and offensive line more than wide receiver right now?
Not offensive line. I think the offensive line has plenty of depth. Troy hurts, but you could find a swing tackle. And honestly, once Isaac comes back, you have a swing tackle, and that's Spencer Anderson. He's not a bad one at all. So I'm not worried about outside line or about offensive line, excuse me. Corner, I have questions at corner. Like, Darius Rush is still here, but the Steelers are signing guys left and right to kind of replace him, but they're keeping him. That doesn't make sense to me. What, does he not have a role? Do you really think he's going to be that good in a year from now that you just want to keep him stashed away? It confuses me. I think corner, you do need some depth right now, depending on how long Corey Trice is going to be out. If it's just those 4 weeks and he comes back by week 8, then that's our week 9. That's not terrible. But if it's going to be longer than that, you do need somebody. I don't think James Pierre is the answer. Maybe CJ Henderson, but I don't really know what you're going to get in that kid.
Let's go over to Grayson, who says, hey guys, with the Steelers defense being so dominant and versatile, what part of the defense do you see making the most impact against the Indianapolis Colts?
Defensive line. I mean, Anthony Richardson, first off, the Colts offensive line has some studs on it, but they also have some holes. And Anthony Richardson does not do well under pressure. He just doesn't. So, and that's on him. That's okay. Like, I'm not trying to bag on Anthony Richardson. I think the Colts made a huge mistake by starting him. Made no sense to start him over Gardner Minshew. He was not ready to be starting over Gardner Minshew, and he's still not ready to be starting over Joe Flacco. So you should have a veteran, but you can't bench him now because that screws up everything that you just did. You have to let him coast this out. But I would say the defensive line, because if you could put pressure on Anthony Richardson, make him move around, make him run, make him make bad throws, it's going to work out in the Steelers' favor. I'm going to say defensive line.
Let's go over to me247 says, honestly, has Minkah taken a step backwards? I haven't heard his name at all in the first 3 games.
So there is a classic clip, and you could Google it if you want, of Earl Thomas talking to some guy on the Baltimore Ravens sideline, and the guy goes, come on, man, I haven't heard your name all day. And Earl goes, I play safety. If you haven't heard my name all day, that's a good thing. That's what it is with Minkah Fitzpatrick. Minkah should not be the dude coming up with 30 tackles a game. If Minkah is making 30 tackles a game, the Steelers defense is struggling. If Minkah is the guy who they are throwing a football to constantly, that somehow means that the Steelers defense has become the craziest thing in the whole world, and they have to target guys they should not target. Right now, quarterbacks are not looking Minkah's way. Running backs are not looking Minkah's way, and they're not getting to the second level for Minkah to make a play. So it's always a good thing when your safeties aren't involved and are quiet, because that means that your defense is doing what it should be. Minkah is the last resort, and if you're not getting to the last resort, you're winning football games.
Let's skip down to Richard Hunt. Appreciate you as always. Says Hopkins, Sutton, Adams. Odds on each of them. Let's go with a 3-1, most likely to least likely.
Okay, so most likely is Davante Adams. In my head, it's Davante Adams. I really do think that. Second most likely right now, where we currently stand, is DeAndre Hopkins, and then last is Courtland Sutton. Just because Davante Adams is going to get out of Vegas. He's frustrated. Antonio Pierce is already threatening to sell the team. He's going to be gone. I think that's a perfect fit. Give him to Pittsburgh. The Steelers would want him. He's a Mike Tomlin type of guy. Second is DeAndre Hopkins, because Will Levis is going to run that team into the ground, and they're going to be done by the trade deadline. By week 8, the Titans season's over. Sell everybody. DeAndre Hopkins is an easy one. Courtland Sutton's not going to be on the trade block. That's why he's number 3. I don't believe he's going to be on the trade block. Davante Adams and DeAndre Hopkins will be. So 1, 2, 3. That's my list.
Let's go to Redmond, who wants to know, how many snaps can we see Cordero Patterson getting with the Warren injury in week 4?
A decent bit. I'd say as much as he got last week. That's what we'll be looking at is Cordero will be playing a little bit of wide receiver, a little bit of running back. He'll probably touch the football, I don't know, 6-7 times. And that's a good day. Najee's going to do a lot of heavy lifting, but Cordero's going to get in there. And if they take an early lead, I could see Cordero taking more, but I could also see a name like Jonathan Ward coming in the second half to just be like, yeah, man, whatever. Don't get anybody hurt. You could go out there. So I would say like 6-7 rushing attempts is where I see Cordero.
Let's jump to the college game with Carl. Carl wants to know, is there any way we can get Shedeur Sanders for the Steelers next year?
I wouldn't touch Shedeur Sanders with a 10-foot pole. That's my personal opinion, and I think the Pittsburgh Steelers would feel the same way. Mike Tomlin, I just do not see Mike Tomlin saying, you want to know what I want? Deion Sanders in Pittsburgh. I don't want him. If it was Deion Sanders, the player, awesome. And if Deion Sanders didn't come with his kids, awesome. But it just kind of feels like a bunch of drama. And I don't think the Steelers are looking for drama right now.
Deuce says, if the defense were to finish top 5 in every defensive category, how many realistic all-pro candidates does the team have? And if so, who are they?
TJ, that's a definite. Cam Hayward. Joey Porter, definitely Joey Porter is on there. Minkah is another obvious one. We're at 4 right now. he keeps playing like it, Deshaun Elliott is going to be one. Maybe a Patrick Queen you could toss in there. Maybe a Keanu Benton you could toss in there. Those are much harder to get into that all-pro category. But I would say there's probably 6 or 7 candidates. Guarantees TJ, and I would say Joey Porter. I'd say Joey Porter and TJ.
Let's go to X Concepts, who says, can Troy Fautanu still come back by the playoffs?
Yeah, from what I've been told is he's kind of looking at an absence that will lead right up to the playoffs, so he could come back then. I don't know if the Steelers are going to play him then. You know, that's a long way to predict, but he could be back by the playoffs. Yes.
Let's go over to Goat, who says, do you really see us signing another wide receiver before the end of the season, or is this just another Ayuk situation?
It could be another Ayuk situation, but the
Please
Steelers were very close to Brandon Ayuk all summer long, and I mean, it was fun. It was tiresome, but it was fun. I do think that not right now, but come the trade, like come week 7, week 8 is when we're going to start talking about that stuff, is when it's really going to start amping up. People are going to toss stuff out there, but right now it's kind of just a back burner thought. Let's wait more towards week 7, week 8.
Marlon wants to know, if Justin Fields doesn't have a good game in Indy and the Steelers lose, does that open up the door for Russell Wilson?
Certainly. I mean, all it takes is one bad game from Russ and the Steelers to lose for that whole situation to see what it's really made of, to see what is really going on with Russell Wilson, because that's all it's going to take is one really bad game. It'd have to be a really bad game. That being said, I just don't think a really bad game is going to come. Like, I just don't see it happening right now. If it does, though, in this hypothetical, yeah, I do think it opens the door. I think it actually it slams it right open for Russell Wilson.
Artrez wants to know, why don't you think anybody wants to give Najee Harris his credit? He stays healthy and is on pace once again for 1,000 yards this season.
Hey, we give Najee Harris his flowers all the time, and we will continue to, because Najee's a good running back. He's a good running back. Is he the best running back in football? No. Is he worth $10 million a year? No. But he's a good running back. He plays very hard. He's reliable. That's what you're looking for. And I do think the Steelers made a mistake by not picking up his 5th-year option.
Let's go over to Steven, who says, speaking of Roman Wilson, who we talked about earlier, if he does get in, how many targets do you see him getting this week?
Oh, this is going to hurt, but 0. I'm going to say 0. I don't think he plays offense. I think he dresses, but I don't think he sees the field maybe a couple of times. But if I had to put an over-under on receptions, 1, and I would probably take the under.
Let's go over to Clinton Thomas, who says, do you think JPJ is as good right now as advertised, or is it still mostly potential?
No, I mean, no, he's definitely good as advertised. When was the last time you heard Joey Porter Jr.'s name at all this season? I haven't heard it one time, because teams won't even look his way. They're like, it takes one series for them to go, yeah, that guy, we're not going there. That's not the side we're going to throw the football to. Yeah, no, he's definitely as good as advertised. I was nervous about a sophomore slump. He has shut it right down. And yeah, I'm a big Joey Porter Jr. guy.
Let's go over to Steelers. I don't know how you got that username, but you lucked out on that one. Just awesome. Steelers says, the Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson is good with long passes. Do you think the Steelers can slow him down?
Yeah, I mean, we want to talk Minkah and what Minkah could do if he gets a couple of those rip. Where's Minkah? Can Minkah stop them? That's Minkah's game. Is what happens deep. That's Minkah's ball. So I do think the Steelers have the personnel to stop him. I do think they have a guy named Minkah Fitzpatrick that can stop him. But I also think that the pass rush is going to play a huge role here to go in there and not allow deep passes and not allow Anthony Richardson to set back and wait for guys to go 60 yards. So I think it's going to play both, but the Steelers do have the pieces to stop him for sure.
Let's go over to Quentin, who wants to know, which number 2 has more hype in Pittsburgh, Justin Fields or Rutger McGroarty? Both will be big for the Berg. And I love the mixture of Penguins and Steelers question here.
I'll toss that one to you, because I don't know much about Rutger there.
Rutger McGroarty I'm excited for, and Penguins fans should be excited for him. but he's not the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So as far as who has more hype, it is certainly Justin Fields, but a lot of hype up in the Hill District with Rucker McGroarty.
Yeah, well, shout out to Rucker. Shout out to Rucker. I respect any hockey player who wears a good number. So shout out to Rucker.
Let's go to Redmond Reed, who says, did Chris Boswell have anything to say about his 62-yard field goal attempt?
So I look at all respect to Chris Boswell. Shout out to Chris Boswell. Actually, he's having a baby, so shout out to Chris Boswell. I've covered this team this is season 6. I have not once ever, outside of COVID when we had to because it was Zoom calls, and I think it was only one time. Outside of that one time, I have never talked to Chris Boswell ever. He declines all interviews. He is never in the locker room, ever in the locker room. 6 seasons. I think I've talked to him one time. I think I got to ask him one question. So, but again, shout out to Chris Boswell. Nobody, the kickers don't got it. It's not like the kickers are there all day at practice anyways. Boz is gone well before anybody else is getting off that practice field.
I think you might have missed your opportunity because didn't he speak after the Atlanta game, which is one of the few that you're not going to this year?
Yeah, he did. I don't think he spoke to everybody though. I think he just spoke to there are a couple people in the media that he somehow sneaks interviews in with. I'm not one of them, unfortunately.
Let's go over to Richard Hunt, who says, is Cam Sutton able to practice during his suspension?
No, he's not even allowed to be in the building. He'll be allowed back, I think week 6, he's allowed back. And then I don't think he can start practicing until right up to week 8 or after week 8. But right now he's not allowed in the building.
Let's go to Stunt Double, who says, what about getting Connor Hayward some touches out of the backfield? We've seen him used in that way in the past.
I think that's an option. That could be a thing. My guess is Jonathan Ward gets called up, but if not, Connor Hayward will be the third, and I could see the Steelers saying, oh, we're comfortable in Connor to be that guy. So I think it could go both ways for sure. I don't like Connor as a running back. I just don't think he is, fast enough, agile enough. I like him as a receiver. I think he's got very reliable hands, but it is an option for the Steelers.
And let's finish it off with Deuce's question here. For many years, the defensive back room has plagued the Steelers defense. To your memory, when was the last time our defensive back room has been this good or this deep?
It's been a long time. It's been this deep that's the big one there. That's the big one. Because you get Cam Sutton back, you get Corey Trice back. This is deeper than the Steelers have been in, my existence. If we're going to be honest. Even the Troy Polamalu, Ryan Clark days, there were not many names behind them. And there was nobody outside of corner, outside of Ike Taylor, and I guess at times Brian McFadden, William Gay for a little bit, but there was never somebody behind them. This is as deep as they come. I'm not going to say as good as they have been because it is, in my head, impossible to surpass Troy Polamalu, Ike Taylor, and Ryan Clark, at least just 3 games in. But by the end of the season, we could be having a conversation about where this defense ranks within the Steelers all time.
That's a wrap for today, then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We'll be back tomorrow with more injury updates, some news on the quarterback, obviously, and maybe to talk some more wide receiver trade. Plus, is the offensive line going to change? I don't know. We'll have some answers tomorrow. With that said, as I say every day, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.